right. Now, okay. Now, again, I will ask you that question. Please do read at least a summary of the story, Shame, by Salman Rushdie. I checked the pronunciation of the word. I was just thinking it would be so much more. I have been saying Rushdie, Rushdie, but it is not. It is Rushdie. That's what I've checked. Okay, so I'll continue to say it the way it has to be said. As yesterday I had given you a little introduction, I told you it's a post-colonial novel. It's something which deals with magic realism. You have to keep that very much in your mind because you find all kinds of fantastic things happening. It is at the same time historical in content, okay, but yet it doesn't have the complete realistic touch. Okay, so there is that the idea of fantastic happening. Okay, and you say, well, this can't be reality, and that's the reason why it moves into that world and that genre of magic realism. Okay, now the whole story begins and ends in one town, a small town, and that town is called Q1. Okay, or just Q. Okay. Now, it actually could stand for a place in Pakistan called Quetta. But Salman Rushdie himself says, no, it is not. Don't allow these kind of things to prevent you from enjoying the story and the novel and following it in detail. It is now Q is on the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Okay, and it all begins in a small little town called Nishapur. It is the home actually of the Persian poet called Omar Khayyam. Have you all heard of Omar Khayyam? He wrote a collection of poems in Persian and it was transcreated. I'm not going to use the word translated because when you translate word for word, it's okay if it is a story, if it is prose. But in poetry, that doesn't work. The beauty of the lines will not be, retained if it is a perfect translation. So transcreated it. That means the British person who actually did the transcreation, okay, his name was Fitzgerald. Now, he translated, let us say, it into English. And it has some very fine, beautiful lines. The name of the book is called the Rubaiyat, Rubayat, Rubaiyat. Now, it comes from the word, it's a plural of the word Rubai. Rubai means Rubai, it means a 5-line poem. Okay, now you have a couplet, which is 2 lines. Okay, like that, you have a Rubai. Rubai is 5 lines. Some of the most beautiful, I'm sure you would have you would have come across these lines somewhere, and you would have quoted them. You would have said, many things. Dead yesterday, unborn tomorrow, why fret about it if today be sweet? Then he says, the moving hand writes, and having writ moves on. Not all thy piety, nor all thy wit can lure it back to cancel half a line. These are all the rubais that he has written. Very, very beautiful lines, but we are not dealing with that. But Omar Khayyam lived in this place called Nishapur. And this whole story starts there and ends there. It's very interesting. And one of the central characters is named after him. He is called Omar Khayyam. Okay. Now, that is the interesting bit. Now, as I said, it takes place in this. Now, that the story, when it starts off, it has 3 sisters who are living in that house in Nishapur. All right. Now, they are called Chunni, Munni, and Bunny. Keep those 3 names in mind. And as we go along, you'll be able to understand many more shades and layers to this whole thing and how they are symbolic and what Salman Rushdie has in mind. Okay. Now, these 3, Chunni, Munni, and Bunny, live in a huge house in Nishapur. Now their father is just dead, and he has understood, they understand that he has wasted all the family money, and they do not have any more money. All right. So they invite all the people, they have a huge feast, and lots of people come in. And at that time, there is this idea that they were friendly with people. Many of them were from the army. Okay. And so at the end of it, one of the sisters is pregnant. Okay. But they don't know who the father is, and they don't want to reveal which sister is pregnant. So all three of them go through the whole idea of pregnancy, and they say, with in every way, they all three of them say it, and they go into the room, and then at the end of the childbirth, one child is born. They don't tell anyone in the world who is the which sister has delivered a child. Okay, now this is with a certain purpose, a certain reason. Okay. There will not be any kind of enmity for the you did this, you didn't do this and that, etc. All three decide to bring up this child, and he is called Omar Khayyam, as I told you. Okay. Now he lives in isolation, nobody to meet him, nothing at all. They bring him up for 12 years like this, and he is a brilliant student, actually. Then finally, at the end of 12 years, he goes to a school. And before he is sent to a school, they tell him and they make him, they order him actually, and tell him to promise never, never, ever feel the sense of shame. Okay. So this whole novel is going to be a interplay on the idea of shame, shamelessness. Who are the people involved in it? What is and what is the extent of shame? And what is the extent of shame? Remember, there is always the symbolic idea that there is a country. And this whole thing is about the country. Now, what is that country? Again, not clear, not quite Pakistan. You understand? Okay. Now, so then what happens is this boy goes to thing, and he becomes a brilliant student, and he becomes an immunologist, and he actually becomes very free and licentious in his behavior. Okay. And also, he's a misogynist, meaning he hates women. All right. Now, he's got this strong prejudice against women. Now, what happens is that Omar has a friend, and his name is Sikandar Harappa. Okay. Sikandar Harappa. All right, Harappa is a place. And Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, these are the places which were Larkana in Sindh. These are all the places which are the sites of the Indus Valley civilization. So therefore, the name Harappa comes because of the place and nothing else, no other detail. Okay, Sikandar Harappa. Now he marries a lady called Rani Humayun. Okay, and they have a daughter, okay, called Arjumand. All right. Now she's a very strong character in this whole story, and she hates the idea of females being exploited by men and such like, and that the idea of gender sexuality. So she has a nickname, and her nickname is Virgin and Iron Pants or something like that. Okay, now when he's 40 years old, all right, Sikandar gives up this whole life of pleasure that he is used to and enjoying wine, women, song, everything like that. He gives it all up and enters politics. Okay. Now, as I told you yesterday, these are people who are very thinly veiled characters based on two historical characters. Okay, if you remember what I told you, one character, as I told you, is based on who is this? Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and therefore the daughter here, Sikandar's daughter, is is also the daughter of this person. Okay, and the character whom you're going to meet now, his name is Raza Haider. He's a military hero who's fought battles, etc. And he is based on the historical character of Ziaul Haq. Okay. Now, so both of them, there was a confrontation. and politically the whole world was watching and noting what was going on in the country of Pakistan. And this has become the kind of central theme of this whole novel. And but he will say it is not Pakistan, it is not quite Pakistan. This is directly, quote unquote, Rushdie. Okay, now, so then what happens is this girl, sorry, now Raza Haider, okay, military hero, and everyone, he marries a girl called Bilkis, all right, and they have two daughters. One is called Sufia Zenobia, all right, and the son is called Naveed, and Naveed is good news. It's good news because he's a son. Now, when the daughter is born the first time, the father is deeply disappointed. Here comes the feminist angle. Okay. And she's called Sufia Zenobia. And she stands for the idea that there was this kind of terrible, unfelt shame. The whole world was watching that he could not get a son. And she could not, the wife could not give him a son first. Okay. And so she's called Sufia Zenobia. Now, there is a problem with her when she was an infant and a child. She gets a very high fever, and then she becomes, it affects her, and she becomes a mentally retarded kind of a child. So, do you see how there is that incompleteness about it? Postmodern novels have this whole idea. Okay, as I told you earlier, what is postmodernism? And that is where you have, she's a central character, but she is a person who's not perfect. What happens is, you see, if you look at a hero in films, he has to be perfect. He has to be the strongest. He can punch up and defeat, even if he is not as strong as the villain. He must punch him up, and he must fight with 15 people. He must be able to sing and dance and do everything very well. He must be very good. He must be everything like that. That is the whole concept and idea of the classical idea of the hero. But everything has been, the stereotypes have been destroyed. You understand? So here she is, the central character, and yet she is imperfect. Now, there are many things about her which you find very startling. And now, what has happened is this whole idea, she has grown up with that sense of shame. Okay, sharam, as it is said in Urdu. Now, every critic discusses it and says that the word sharam is not able to project the idea, the many nuances of the idea of feeling shame, you see. Now, what happens is she becomes a person who is full of negative thoughts, ideas, and everything. And then she has what is called the beast in her. Now, you'll see the beast is something which you see as a picture on the cover page of the shame also. Okay, now the beast comes out of her many times. The first time you have it is where she takes a whole flock of turkeys, and what she does is she beheads them. Okay, cuts off the head. And it is said in the most gory manner. She brings out the guts through the through the head. The way she has cut it, and she pulls out that, even the guts and the insides and everything come out. Okay. Now that is something which is possible. I've checked that out, and it is possible. For example, there are people who will cut the head of the fish and bring out the guts of the fish also. Okay. Now, so this is what she does, and she feels so ill. She falls ill and sick, and she is overtaken by shame for her act and for her deeds and such like. Now, at that time, they call in this doctor, okay, Omar Khayyam. He comes and he treats her, and he falls in love with her, and he marries her. Okay, but are you seeing? These are two huge families. Okay, two huge families, and they are constantly with each other. On one side, you have Omar Khayyam, all right, and you have this Raza Haidar's family and his daughter, and now Omar Khayyam is marrying Raza Haidar's daughter. Okay, now he is forbidden to have any sexual relations with her. Okay, and instead he has sexual relations with the maid of this girl, Sufia Zenobia, and she's about 28 years old. All right. And Sufia Zenobia knows what is going on, and she is very, very, very angry. And the beast in her comes out again. Okay. There are instances when the beast comes out. There is another instance when a sister is getting married and she bites the groom's neck and things like that. And the neck is the place where you have the carotid vein, isn't it? Now, so the beast takes over, and now what she does is she goes out of the house and she catches these four young men and rapes them and has and beheads them and kills them. Now, when that is the case, Omar Khayyam and Raza Haider realize the truth of what is happening to this lady, and what they do is they put her into the house in a top room, lock her up, and give her injections. She has to take 2 injections in a day. This story is going on. Okay, now at the same time, there is a kind of military there is, if you remember, he has taken politics and he has become the prime minister of the country, Sikandar. And at this point of time, Raza Haider is involved in a military coup and he actually pulls down this Sikandar, all right, and he tries him in a court of law. Military rule comes in, which happened in Pakistan. Okay, and he tries him and imprisons him and then beheads. Okay, now this is again all historical facts which have happened. Now, how and what is a very different thing. This is written in a very different way in a novel. Okay, now this military, what happens at that time is Omar with his wife Bilqis and Raza with his wife Bilqis and Omar Khayyam and this lady Sufia Zenobia, they all run away. And what they do is they come to this place again, Nishapur. Okay. Now there, the three mothers are there and they feel very happy and they say yes for the fact that the son has come back, Omar Khayyam. Now, Omar Khayyam had a second brother called Babar and he had been killed by Raza. So seeing Raza, they are very happy. Okay. And what they do is they kill him. Okay. Now, when he is killed, when Raza is murdered, okay. Now his sister, his daughter, Sophia Zenobia, she again, for the last and final time, the beast overtakes and comes into her and kills. What she does is she kills Omar, beheads him again, okay? And then at the end of that, when she has killed him, that whole shell that which she is caught in, okay, is cast off and she is free. But she and Omar and everyone in the house, they go up in flames and they're consumed by a great fire. Okay, this is the basic novel as it goes. All right, now we come to the critical analysis. The whole, uh, it's supposed to be a wonderful novel of great power, and it's a dazzling tale, as they call it, and it's about that feud between this family and that family. Normally you have this kind of feuds in some very important novels which are written in English. One of them I remember very well is called East of Eden, and like that you'll have two families which actually have this fight, and all the characters from here, characters from there, they intermingle and mix with each other. They are either in hatred or in love, and then they affect each other and destroy each other. Okay, that's the end of the whole novel. So here also we have the same thing. The narration is superb, as they say. Okay, and now it's an imaginary Islamic society. Okay, it has a name of the place. Everything is imaginary. Therefore, taking it into that realm of the fantastic and realm of the whole idea of magic realism. Okay, now it's artificial in the sense that it is not pure history. Okay, thinly veiled. Now it's an unnamed country also, as I have said, and everything like that. Now, what happens is that it is a novel where they're exploring the whole idea of shame in all its variations. Okay. Now, there is actually the idea of shame and shamelessness. Okay. And violence, according to Salman Rushdie, as he says, violence is born out of shame. When you are ashamed about something, then it actually, the novel says in a beautiful paragraph, he says, it affects a man so much, he turns to violence. To a woman, it makes her less than herself, and she uh, can take to violence like this Sufia Zenobia, or it can take her into becoming very withdrawn into herself. There are powerful lines which the whole novel has. Okay, so violence is the main theme of this, because she can behead a flock of turkeys and see them lying all around her in the most gory kind of a manner. All right, and not only is it just the head which she's cutting off very neatly, it is that she's doing it in such a way the entire guts come out. Okay, shame and shamelessness are exposed through the characters. Okay, whether it is Omar Khayyam, okay, because he lives a life which is uh, very, very free and licentious. He's a voyeurist, meaning he likes to watch people uh, you know, it's an unhealthy kind of thing. Watch people in the sexual act. You understand that voyeurism is what he's writing. He writes about, and then he's also a person who does a number of things like that. You see, and then he is both. So Sufi Zenobia and Omar Khayyam are both like that. Okay. Now the rest of the themes are of family and marriage. Okay, what is the family? This is the thing, he is married so and so, and he has a wife, and the wife gets this one. She has a brother, she has a sister, this kind of thing. Family and marriage is something which actually, if it is done in the most pure form, in a very unreal kind of a way, or in a way where it doesn't happen, then you can write a novel. Okay, that's why it goes into fiction. You see, these are realistic novels, whereas the others which are written like that go onto the shelves of the fiction in a library. And even in films, also, as I said, everything which is positive, which happens, you love to see such films. You say, ah, oh, nice. This family is so much like mine. Oh, but there are some things which are not very like that. Okay, but that is the way it is. Realism, the rawness of life is something which you don't find in fiction. Okay, so this one has the rawness in all its reality. Okay, now then politics comes in, and culture and everything is woven in. Okay, now another thing that is there in this novel is the idea of migration. Now, Omar Khayyam, the migration of Omar Khayyam, okay, from his house into the rest of the world is the migration, the personal migration of Salman Rushdie himself. If you remember, he was born in India, then he went to Pakistan. He lived there for some time, then left and went to England, studied there, came back to Pakistan, and went away from there. Okay. Now, so how many countries has he been in? India, Pakistan, and England. The three mothers, Chunni, Munni, and Bunny. The first thing when you hear the names, you hit and you say, Chunni Munni is Indian. Why couldn't Rushdie find another Indian name rhyming with Chunni Munni? You see, it cannot. England is Bunny. All right, Chunni, Munni, and Bunny. It's very cute and very nice. Once you realize the analogy, then you understand that. All right, he considered these three countries as his mother. Okay, is it clear to you? And he says also, I know there's something about this migration. These are his exact words in the novel. I know I have never lived longer than 6 months in Pakistan. I know Pakistan in slices, he said, in slices. I have never lived there more than 6 months. Okay, now There is a lot to say about Sophia Zenobia. Okay, the heroine. She's the personification of shame, and now the disappointment of not being a male baby is something that would have been told to her many times. Oh, your father expected to have uh, a son, but you were born, you were a girl. Now the mother suffers and the child suffers. Do you see what happens to the psyche if you're born and you're not wanted? Okay, you're not wanted, you're not loved because you're a girl. You see the unfairness of it. Do you see the whole idea about the female being exploited is something which is there all over the world. We have learned to live with this. Women have learned to live with this. We never think about it. Okay, I can see a whole lot of names of girls there, and I think in the modern day we are cherished and loved so much by our parents. We are never made to feel like this, isn't it? But a long time ago they had this whole idea. Everyone wants a son, son, son. He's so important. Okay, then on top of it, she gets a brain fever that is damaged, and she's mentally disabled. And from the age of 9 years she to 20 now her sorry I beg your pardon her mental age is something which has not grown beyond 9 years. So what happens is that when she's 28 also, her mental age is only 9 years. So that's how she behaves. Okay. And that is the reason why she can be so angry. And so she can be, because as they grow older and older, as you will see later in the next story that we are going to read, there are ways in which a girl is controlled. All right. And one of them, her anger, her feelings, and everything gets controlled because she has crossed the age of puberty. Right. So like that here, her age is only 9 years. And so she commits murder. And murder is something, whether it's a turkey, a flock of turkeys, or whether it is a human beings that she murders, 4 men she murders. Okay. And at the end, she kills her own husband also. You understand? So what happens is that is something which is the what gives her what we call the shame, the element of shame. Okay, and that is something which is the violence, and the thing is something which is what you see in the novel. Okay, of course, it's a postmodern fiction, and in the postmodern fiction, as you know, it's a the situation is a situation where nothing is normal. The society, the situation is dystopic, meaning it's imperfect, and everything is basically, what is not what we would say perfect. Okay. Now, we find also, I think we talked yesterday about the third world literature, and I've talked to you about mixing realism and fantasy, and that is why it is called a magic realism genre. It belongs to that. Okay. And we have taken into consideration Pakistan and the history of Pakistan in the novel Shame. All right. Now, I also talked to you yesterday about the experiments he makes with language. He uses Urdu words, just like who's the other writer we have dealt with. He actually uses Hindi words in the Kuli, okay, in the novel Kuli. All right. Now, there are Pakistan, he says, is not quite Pakistan, but there are many direct references to the whole idea. Okay. And displacement, I've talked to you about, and the movement, the is actually the journey and the passage is something which is the movement in who is this Rushdie's life itself, okay, and his migration, that is exactly what happens in his own life, and his central character goes through that, okay. Then there is also a touch of the grotesque. Now, what do you mean by the grotesque? It is unnatural, terribly unnatural, and that is the central character of Zenobia. She is she is a personification of that grotesqueness in shame, the way she kills and exterminates the things. It's something as if she's like an avenging angel, and it's like a vampire that she behaves like that. Okay. And she's two beings. One is Zenobia herself, Sophia Zenobia, and the other is that she's like a beast inside the beauty. Okay. Now, there is always, she actually, they say, metaphorically, she is the image of Pakistan. Okay. She is what we call a miracle gone wrong, the miracle of a child. Every child who's born is a miracle. Okay. And Pakistan was supposed to be that miracle, but it went wrong. That is what they say. These are not any thoughts. I'm reading exactly from your note here. And so there's nothing which any one of us will is saying anything which is anyway, that idea of subverting, okay, undermining the country, undermining the situation. Okay, and he lived there and he was not comfortable, and that is the reason why. Okay, now Sufia Zenobia is as grotesque as the grotesque in Pakistan, etc. There's another thing which is there. Shame is a title that this novel bears, and it is a starting point and the ending point of the whole novel. Okay, it's like two ends of the bracket. Okay, that's where starts in Nishapur, ends in Nishapur, starts with that shame and ends there. Okay, originates in shame and ends in shame. Okay, and it is said that he read about in London the story of a girl who was killed by her father. Okay, this is what happened in London, and her father, he was ashamed that this girl made love to a white boy, and murdered her himself. Okay, Pakistani girl. All right. Now, this is something which happens, and it's the personal and the public become one and the same. All right. And shame, remember, is the theory. And we are talking about the whole idea of gender and shame. And there are characters who are distasteful, meaning they are not very beautiful characters. Now, physical beauty is there. Sufia Zenobia is an extremely beautiful woman at 28. But uh, but what she does and how she goes about is a very beastly kind of a way. You understand? Okay. Then it's distasteful. Then you have that's about the novel as we can say. And then if there is anything, any questions that you have, you can always put them in the chat and I will be able to answer them for you. We go on to the next story, okay, novel, which is translation from Telugu. Now it's called Ayoni, okay, Ayoni. Any of you have read it, prepared it? Anyone has read the Telugu version of the story? It is written by a lady called Volga, which is her pen name. I think her original name is Lalita Kumari. Okay, and she has written this. It's a very powerful novel. It's extremely, I mean, it's a feminist, strong feminist. She was a fiery feminist, Volga. Okay, she wrote about Sita, demystifying the whole character and everything like that. Okay, we need to look at the title of the story. We look at the whole concept of how she has treated women in the thing. What are her conclusions? Okay, and the character, the central character herself, what what is the growth of the mind of the character. Okay, that is very important, and we have to. If you take just 2 minutes to make a break and bring your minds back to what to something else. You see, because I'm shifting between a story which is written by Salman Rushdie, a novel written by him, going on to something. A story written by Volga, then I'm going to move to Hoshang Merchant and then poetry. It's like for me, a roller coaster uh, a ride on a roller coaster. It's really for me every time I'm doing this, I have that kind of a sensation and a feeling, going headlong with all this. Do you have that idea? Are you feeling that and you want, sometimes you feel, no, please stop, I want to get off. that kind of thing. Yeah, I want to say stop. I want a moment when I recollect my thoughts and I go on to make a shift and tell you about something else. Now, but we see you can't, we cannot stop. We can't do anything, but there's a sense of time, which is very, very important. It's already 5:40. I should have finished that by 5:30. 10 minutes I've lost. Okay, now, Volga, okay, is a feminist writer. And feminist writers around the world raise controversial issues because they think only of one thing, woman. She's the center of every kind of discussion and everything. The way the mind works, for them. It is something. Oh, I'm so sorry. Someone has asked me, good evening, ma'am, which unit? I'm doing the actual third unit. Okay, I'm doing this third block. And here I had just Salman Rushdie and Volga here. And finishing these two, then I move to Hoshang Merchant and all these others, which I have to finish every one of them today and tomorrow. Today and tomorrow is when I have to finish this. That's one thing. Then someone else has answered, I think. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it. No other message which is there in the chat. Right. Now, so anything else you want to ask me at any point, please ask and I'll check if I see there's a message, then what I can do is I can check it immediately. Okay, now, Volga is a feminist writer. And as I was saying, feminist writers talk, uh, you know, against and raise issues against the patriarchal society. You understand the meaning of the word patriarchal? Patriarchal means where the man is the head of the house. He makes all the decisions. He is considered only his opinion matters. And the women do not matter. They have very specific roles. Now, they are the breadwinners. They are the ones who control property. They are the ones who are all important, right? Woman is in the background. They do not have, they do not have an opinion. They're not supposed to. They are supposed to look after the house, uh, produce children, sons, that too, and not too many daughters. And then when it is then in the marriage ceremony and everything, of course, they sit with the husband and all that, but they do not have prominence, no importance at all. And every prayer of theirs will be, let me die a Sumangal. That means, let me die before my husband. Because if husband dies before her, the world does not have sympathy for her. Okay, much before the 19th century or in the 1800 something, during the time of the colonial rule, terribly cruel things were done to women who were widows. All right. They either put them on the fire and burnt them, or they would send them away to Kashi, where they would live there in the temples there, cleaning, performing pujas, praying and everything, not eating any of the kind of foods that normal people eat and such like. Okay, their senses were supposed to be made dull. Okay, no sharp senses at all and such like. There's a reason, there's a purpose, there's a lot of written material on that. There are films which have been made about that and such like. And then society began slowly to protest and say, not that, don't do that. Okay, and let the woman have a life of her own. Okay, so when this was the patriarchal society, one state in India, okay, only one state in India has a matriarchal society, and that is Kerala. And that too, not for the poor people, the lower castes, only the upper castes. Okay, the woman was the head of the family. Okay, I don't know if any of you have heard of this. Have you read about it or have you heard about it? It's very interesting. The um, the man gets married. His wife doesn't come to his house. He goes to the wife's house. The children take on the name of the mother. Okay, it's very interesting. Even in Kerala now, I think that has changed. So it's not there anymore. But originally, that is the state which had this matriarchal. Now, the patriarchal society, the patriarchal construct, as it is called, and the patriarchal ideas is where men are the rulers. Okay. Now, before this, there was silence over these issues. Women didn't talk at all. They didn't question and or anything like that. Feminist writers in Telugu began to write. Okay. And they began to raise questions and they began to ask about this kind of exploitation of women. And leading writers, a lady who is called Mupala Ranganayakama, if any of you are, Telugu speaking people, you would have, your parents, your mother would have heard about her. And you can always ask. Her name was Mupala Ranganayakama. Then there's Volga. Okay. Then Padma, Kuppili Padma. Then P. Satyavati, Kondapuri Nirmala, then C. Sujata, I think, Gitanjali, Shah Jahan, and more recently, someone whom I have read recently, Challapalli Swaruparani. Okay. Then Vinodini. And these are a few, and they talked about the different aspects of a woman's life in a male dominated society. Okay. Have you got what I'm trying to tell you? Now, women writers, when we talk about the exploitation of women, don't only think of one thing, that is prostitution, the flesh trade. That's not the only exploitation of women. Exploitation starts from the time of the birth of the girl. One, is she welcome? If she is not, that is the first stage of exploitation. Second, when food is cooked and given, they give the best to the son. It used to happen. See, you and I will not know about it. We live in enlightened homes and enlightened situations. So when you think of she's a girl and she has to get married. So let the boy go to college. Let him learn. He has to become an engineer. He has to go do this. He has to run the family business. It's always the man, the boy who is given prominence. And that's a kind of exploitation. Time of marriage, okay, they'll be saying, oh, the girl is a minus, the boy is a plus. Right? He will bring the dowry, but we have to give away our money to the girl's family. And she goes away completely from a place where she's born, brought up, has family ties and everything, and goes into another. Okay, right? She can't look back. She can't say, I'll come back, right? All these kind of very interesting things. There are times when they'll say, don't come back, only at the time of your death when the arthi is taken, then I would like to be called. Otherwise, I don't want to be called. They wash their hands on. All this is the kind of exploitation that women are beginning to voice and talk about. And it's so funny. Today's world, you see, we talk about in the modern day, boys have to be very, very careful. They have to learn to cook a little. They have to run the house. They have to change the nappies for the baby. It's an equal life that you are looking at. All right. And your children are the ones who will be having to think in terms of this because today's girls are calling the shots and they are saying, I'm working. I don't want to give up. I want to be economically independent. Then, not only that, they are saying there was a case which was fought in Calcutta, and parents who were, alone and sick and unable to, and they had three daughters, and they could not. These daughters couldn't come back and look after them because their own families were not allowing that. They went to court. Fought. It's a historic, case, which is very, very, which is regarded as an important milestone. Okay. Now, so like that, these are the forms of exploitation that we are talking about. Don't only think of the flesh trade. All right. Are you able to understand when we say women are exploited? You say, I'm going, okay, what's wrong? What is this lady complaining about? You think of an equal status, men and women being given equal status. And it is not about being given a certain number of seats in a bus. That's not it. right? It's not it. You talk about every aspect, the legal aspect. Are you getting the property? What is happening here? That education, food, all of it. All right, that's what we mean. Okay, now Volga presents in her stories, in this story, she presents the hidden facts of a system where a woman is treated like a commodity. Commodity is an article. Okay, she goes much beyond that. Let me tell you, Olga shocks people and surprises people with her reality. You see, and that is something she won't beat about the bush. She hits the nail on the head, and she presents reality in all its uh, in every way. What is reality and nothing else? Okay, the story is narrated very interestingly from the perspective of a child. Right? You think, oh, it's all wonderful. She's a child. She's innocent. She's young, this and that, etc. But as she grows, this girl child, I'll use the word girl for you to understand better. This girl child becomes a victim of the men who are in society waiting. And when she grows up and attains puberty, right, then she becomes that commodity. Okay? And that is the most interesting thing, the most interesting, the most beautiful kind of thing. It the title is something you have to understand. Okay. Uh, Ayoni, Ashanti. What does Ashanti mean? Shanti is peace. Ashanti, no peace. Okay. Now, Ayoni. Yoni is the female genitalia. Okay. The linga and the yoni are the two aspects which go together to present the whole idea of man woman. Okay, it is like yin and yang from the eastern part of the world. You understand? Both coexist. They're drawn in such a way, right? You cannot, they complement and complete each other. You have an idea what is the yin and the yang emblem? That is something which will explain it. The linga and the yoni. All right, she says, our yoni. Meaning, if this is going to give so much of trouble to a woman, why have it? She should be someone. I hope you're not shocked. I'm teaching without any kind of hesitation. I hope you don't mind. I put my hands together and I'll say, this is Volga and what she has presented. Okay. And so that is what the whole story deals with. Okay. And again, uh, Sita is the name of the character, considered to be chaste, beautiful, and everything. Now, if a person is going to be put to so much of trouble, okay, and such like, then it is better to be a yonija, means a woman without the yoni, so that cannot be taken, make her subject to violence and such like. Okay. Now the solution to the problem that she is suffering. Imagine a young girl, okay, who has just come out of childhood. She is subjected to so much of pain and so much of distasteful behavior by the men who visit her. Okay. And that is the reason why she looks for that time. She says, this is the only solution for me. Volga in this story shatters the whole idea of Sigmund Freud, who has said that women have penis envy. That is a kind of jealousy about the fact a young girl realizes that she doesn't have a penis, and that is the reason why she feels a gender inequality. Volga says nothing like that. I don't believe that is right at all. Okay. And it's not something which we should talk. So in this whole story, according to her, woman is treated as an organ, the female organ. Okay, that is what this whole thing. The protagonist in the story, okay, is nothing but the yoni. And it is, and she says, all women are only that and nothing else. They are a uni when they need, when men need sexual pleasure. They are a womb when they need a child. They need a child. They need a son. Okay? According to the thing, a son only is allowed to light the fire. So he has to have a son. You get my point? All right. Then when when it is time actually for him to have not merely a son, but the sexual needs, which are something according to nature, it is something which can go on throughout life. And so then that he needs the woman. The woman is becomes nothing but an organ, is what you said. Just organs without any individuality, without any identity. This is what you'll find in your text, this which you will be reading from. So it is a serious question that she raises in this. What is the identity of a woman? Is she a woman by herself, an individual, a thinking brain, a feeling, an idea, what she wants and what she doesn't want? If you remember, yesterday you had this story of this woman who protests and she says, wait, let me think. Do I want to have this? Can I be the one who decides whether I want to have this fifth child or not? Okay, but the woman in the end surfaces, she cannot kill the child. Okay, that's a different story. But the whole idea is at no point is a woman allowed to think and say, today, this is something which I don't want. She can't say that. She has to give in to her husband. Okay. Now, there are legal uh, things which will say restitution of marital rights also to a man. That these are the kind of things, these are the things that she's protesting against, right? Man's identity has so many dimensions and angles. However, a woman's identity depends only on the fact that she is a woman with the organ of the yoni. All right, she has to perform all the duties which are inflicted upon her, and the identity of her, nobody's asking her any questions and saying, yes, do you want to do this? Do you not want to do this? Nothing. You have to do it. Okay. And she also, so this is what the whole story is about. And she talks about being victimized by superstitions also. Okay. And that is the beliefs also, which are centered around society has several prejudices and baseless beliefs. In a male dominated society, these beliefs and opinions will harm a woman and she can't protest. And she has to be subjugated to a man, controlled by a man. Okay. And it could be a simple thing like not wanting to have children or widows having views. Okay. Single women who live, then sati, dowry, black magic, all these kind of things are what a woman has no right about. The flesh trade is considered a blessing for society because what happens is many of the atrocities of men are, women are saved, okay, by that. That's another aspect of it, okay. And the child's life and such like. And it reaches such a point that the woman feels so threatened, her birth, existence, identity, lifestyle. She has to go through life being afraid because of a threat to her life. And Volga herself presents such situations in all many of her other stories when she says that life does not matter, but she has to give birth to a child. That is what she has to do. Okay, you can imagine the kind of things which will be said a woman, about a woman who is not able to have a child. It's a terrible world. Okay, she's never invited to any of the functions. They consider her bad omen when they have the ceremonies about a woman who is having a baby shower, as they call it these days. You see, and all those kind. They only call women who are what we call in Telugu muttaidu, and the women who are in what you mean is women who have children and such like. So all these things, the many of the doors are closed because of this kind of superstitions. And the only door which is open is to such women is the door of death. Okay. Now, There is, so she says, only death will release her from the suffocation and suffering and everything like that. Okay. And this whole idea is what you have in this whole story and the discussion. So we look at the conclusion, and her inclination to write and publish is dead, and she's alive only to give a title to her story. Okay. And that's what she says as far as this is concerned. A woman's life is dictated by the beliefs of a society which has been created by men. Male dominated is not the only thing. These are created. A long time ago, I attended a lecture where they said the entire language, and I'm talking about English, is something which is created by men. So that is why today we no longer say chairman, we say chairperson. Okay, why should it be? A girl is sitting there and you can't say chairman, sir. She has to be chairperson. In the same way, Aishwarya Rai is called an actor, right? She's not called an actress. So the word itself should not make a difference about the gender. That is gender sensitive words. Okay. And these are the kind of changes that we are bringing into language and everything like that, because a woman is not merely there to satisfy the sexual needs of the male and to be just an organ and nothing else. This is the what Volga, the strong feminist writer, says. Okay. And that is an interesting thing. That's the end of block 3. Okay. Now I'm going on to block 4. Block 4 has, if you will look at it very carefully, if I may read from the list for you, you have Hoshang Merchant, and there are selected poems. Manjula Padmanabhan, who has written an essay. Okay. Then Imtiaz Dharkar is a woman, don't go by the name. All right. She's a woman. She's a collection of poems from her. Then Meenakshi Mukherjee. All right. Then you have Dalit literature and aesthetics, which is very interesting, which is the latest and newest kind of a genre which has come in. Sharan Kumar Limbale, he is called. And then you have a last, very short, some of the very important, um, the beginnings of English literary study in India, Gauri Vishwanathan. Okay, so that makes 2 into 4 into 6. Of them, 2 are very, very short. We can easily manage to finish this entire thing. Okay, and so I'll start with Hoshang Merchant. Okay, again, you pause for 2 minutes to collect your thoughts. Any questions you have about Olga or about Salman Rushdie? Do you think you're enjoying your study of any English literature year 1? How do you find it? Challenging, interesting?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, right, because,
Uh,
yeah,
Ma'am, like Salman Rushdie's that story is there, na? So they are asking about the means questions, how they will give the questions related to the
you have the
stories.
questions in your text given at the end of each bit, each part, and they're giving you also the answers to the questions. You understand? You have
Yes,
some questions. Write a short note on the role of the self-conscious narrator. This is Salman Rushdie himself who's narrating. Okay, and he seems to be of Western descent and education like Rushdie. So, what does this tell you about the reading of the story? So, it tells you that basically he is actually very definitely Western in his thinking. He's not writing from the Islamic point of view at all.
yes, yes,
Right. So that is what you have to say. And even if he has set it in an Islamic society, it's an imaginary thing which is not reality also. All right. So
yes,
occasionally there are 2 words he has talked at great length. One is sharam and the other is takalluf or something like that. That is the only thing, the problem. Now, a note on the grotesque in the use of the novel shame. I told you that this lady, what is her name? Uh, the central character, Zenobia. Okay, Sophia
yes, ma'am.
Zenobia. She represents the grotesque. When you say grotesque, you mean something which is unusual, you see, and not
Yes, ma'am.
beautiful. It is grotesque. Okay, so how is she? What is the role of the grotesque in the? How is it used in the novel? It is used with all the characters.
Yes.
especially Sufia Zenobia and Omar Khayyam. These are the two people whom he has represented, made them symbolic of it completely. Then an
Yeah.
essay on the emotion of shame. I told you it is shame, shameless. What is it that causes the shame? What is it that we do? And he's talking about the country. Now, that is a very touchy thing, because if it is a mixed class that we are teaching, people may protest. That's why I put my hands together and I said, these are not my views. This is what is there in your text. So
Yes.
a it was supposed to be a miracle nation. I mean, imagine being born out of nothing. See, India was already there. Okay. United States of America was already there when they got their independence from England, Britain, right? It's
Yes.
not a new country which was fashioned, right? It just becomes from being under another country, it becomes free, right? But with Pakistan, both West and East, it is a miracle nation which has been born out of from nowhere. And there was great hope in it. And the writer sees that that hope is not something which has been turned into a reality. So he sees that, and that is his emotion and his idea. And that is the reason why I think that fatwa was brought out and such. Okay. Then you have critically examined it as a third world novel. I told you what is the third world? What do you mean by third world nations? And what are the characteristics that you see in third world nations and how you see it in this novel? Okay, there is times when you talk about postmodern, you talk about third world literature. It's on page 138. It's a new literature, as it is called in English. There's nothing else before which is termed as thing. And we are talking about this is the reason because of the colonization of England, Britain by in various places all over. I told you they had done colonies all over the world. And then after the Second World War, the economy of the whole world was something which was so badly shaken, right? And they gave their independence away to most of the countries which demanded it. And so, therefore, you see, there was economic and political subjugation, which you find, and to become strong again, only some countries have been able to do it, India being one of them. So we can be
Yes.
proud,
Yes, ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
75 years, and we are racing in our progress, and that is because of education, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Education where it was 38% in 1947 at the time of independence. And now we're ranging ahead. 78 or 79% is where we are at. We'll cross that. You have states which are completely, totally 100% literate. Kerala, for example. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Many other states will join like that. So it goes on in that kind of a way. And here, this is what you mean by third world literature. And this is an example of this because what happens when it is a third world literature, there is an impact on the literature which is written. Always remember one thing social, political, cultural, economic, all these things which are happening in the country will be
Affect.
reflected in the literature
Great.
written.
Yes, ma'am.
That is
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
happy I could get a response from you all because it's very important that it is interactive.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
classroom where if I could meet you all sitting, I'm sure there would be so much greater interaction.
Yes.
I'll be talking
Ma'am.
and I'll be answering you. But let's
Yes,
see
ma'am.
what we can do.
Yes.
Okay, now we come
Thank
to
you.
you're most welcome. Please don't
Yeah.
say thank you. Uh, to be a teacher and to have a question asked is something which I find is really very, very wonderful. It means you're listening and you have thoughts which are
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Okay.
Now, just as I've been talking about feminism and feminist literature and everything, we also have a new genre which has come up. And that genre is because of a new awareness, a new event, a new cultural context, as we call it. Remember, use the word cultural context. It's really a very interesting way of putting something in the right expression, with the right expression. Okay. What is the cultural context of that I'm talking about? It is a certain section of literature, whether it's poems, stories, novels, essays, or anything, which is written by people, a certain segment of people who are different from the normal rest of everyone. They are whom we term homosexuals. Okay? And the homosexuals are different because they are not attracted to the opposite sex, which is what we call natural, okay? But they are attracted to the same sex, okay? Men, it's called homosexuality, and women, it's called lesbianism. Okay. Now, we don't have any lesbian writers to study, though there are in the West, we've had several writers. But this is a homosexual writer. He wrote poetry. His name is Hoshang Merchant. This is on page 158 of your own text, which is there, which is given for your study notes, which are given. I suppose all of you have them, have the book, which comes from the university.
Yes, ma'am. It is
Right.
163, ma'am, new book.
Okay, right, right. This must be an old book which I have with me, which has been given to me. Okay, now Hoshang Merchant wrote poetry. He was actually, he belonged to a Parsi family, it was a Zoroastrian family, and he has traveled very extensively. He has covered large geographies, as it says in the text, in the pursuit of education. All right. And he is a person who's also a poet and a teacher. And he's a person who's an editor. Other people write and you can edit. So he has edited, but not ordinary books like me. I edit books too. But he's an editor of gay writing. Gay writing is homosexual writing. Okay, all right. Now, so we look at this where what you have for study, but it is an important segment of literature. And that is the reason it is there. We have an open mind about these things and we will look at what he has written. Okay. Now, he's also studied Buddhism and Tibetan, at the Tibetan library at Dharamshala, and also Islam in Iran and Palestine, and published many books of poems. And you'll find that his poetry announces itself. He makes no bones. He doesn't hide the fact that he's gay. All right. Homosexuality, to use a phrase, has come out of the closet. Otherwise, it was hidden and kept quiet. But now it is in the open. Okay. And homosexual or same-sex love and the identification has not been very welcome earlier. It has had a hostile environment, but literature is written, published, and sometimes criticized throughout. Okay. Now, but it is now see what we have as the writer, as the editor of the book says, people have what is called a homophobia, which means they are hostile towards homosexuals. Now it is changed, and they say, well, that's a different way of thinking, a different way of living. Let them be. All right, that's what we have. So even their literature is something which is being accepted and it is being studied as you and I are studying it now. And we then understand that there are so many writers who have written, and they were people who were gay. And so the shades which were there in some part of the text was, gay and such like. But here he's very frank about the fact that he is gay. You understand? Okay. Now, homosexuality in India. All right. Now, it is something which has which is originally again not accepted. It was very uh, hostile. People were angry. They didn't like it, and they faced a lot of trouble. All right, but now that whole thing has changed. People in India believed very strongly that this is something which is from the immoral West. The West is immoral, meaning not moral at all. Okay. And uh, and so they said it's coming from the West. There's nothing like this in India. India doesn't have this kind of thing at all. And politically also, both the left and the right, that is, every political party, all right, they have condemned it as alien. They said it's not Indian at all. Okay. And they said it's a decadent West. Now, what do you mean by the word decadent? Decadent is where society has come down. In the West, what happens is, the entire thing has changed. The social structure has changed. Whereas we retain it in India, the family is very important. And our culture tells us that we have to have these ceremonies and beliefs and everything in every religion. Believe me, I'm talking about Hinduism. I'm not talking about one religion. Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, practicing Buddhists, Jains, all religions have strong family background. The West is now turning to India and saying, oh, this is the reason why their society is still existing in such a wonderful way and such like. Okay. So what happens is the decadent West, the West which has gone down, there are no morals, there are no rules, and it is each man for himself, each person, and there is a corrupting element, and that is the reason why homosexuality has come in. That's what they say. But then let us not just criticize the West about it. And so what happens is in India, the rules for behavior on the streets and everything is very strict. And so they keep to it. In the West, it's not so, and such like. Okay. Now, there are lots of threats which are there about legal action. So people are very careful about the whole thing. All right. Now, what happens is gay activists in India have different descriptions about homosexuality. All right, they and they feel they clarify when they write in their books. This is the clarification. They feel that the world that people need to understand what it is, what their feelings are, what their ideas are. Give me one moment, please. There is a question. Um, okay, a ninth unit is what I'm being asked. uh, the textbook given to me says blocks. And so you have block one, block two, block three, block four. I'm in block four. And in that you have, this is the last block. Okay. Anyone having difficulty locating the text, locating this particular thing, please go to the last set of six uh, writers. Okay, their first one is Hoshang Merchant, and I'm doing Hoshang Merchant now. After which I will go to Manjula Padmanabhan, then I shall do Imtiaz Dharkar, Meenakshi Mukherjee, Sharan Kumar Limbale, and Gauri Vishwanath. All right. If you look at the time, it is 6:18, right? Which means I can just barely manage to finish Hoshang Merchant before the link expires. All right, which will leave me five writers that I have to do tomorrow. Quite possible. I will be able to finish. That's why I am taking it slow. I'm not under feverish thing. And even about the last few units, if any of you have a question, a worry, a doubt, please get it ready by tomorrow and I shall clarify all doubts by tomorrow. Is that, are you okay with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Tomorrow also 5 o'clock only, ma'am.
Five
Yes.
to 6:30.
Okay, ma'am.
Will be my last class. I'm told that the first block has already been done for you by someone else, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that is that Macaulay's Minute and Venelakanti, Subbarao, Torudat, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes, ma'am.
Gurudhara Apparao, they must have been very interesting. Gurudhara Apparao, B.R. Ambedkar, all these people. Because I started from Rabindranath onwards, Mulkarajanan, Krishnan Singh, Viswanath Pai. I've done the whole lot. Okay, the other first block is what someone else had done. It took
Yes,
me a
ma'am.
while. I came in only at that. I didn't know about this whole thing before. Okay, so we come back to what is homosexual literature and what is it that they write in it. What is the content? What is the theme? Thematically, what are they writing? What they're writing one in all languages. They're writing about, the whole idea about what are the challenges that they face? What are the kind of colonial laws which are there, and how homosexuality is criminalized? They are punished. So that is what they write about. Okay. And then they also talk about social stereotypes about homosexuality, and the whole one of the stereotype is that homosexuals are perverse people, which is not the case. They are just uh, different thinking individuals. Are you able to understand? We have to think. They have each time they created. I'm sure they have done it. I mean, it's not as if I have to create it or anything, but it's just that they are different, and they can't help it because that's how they are. Okay. And that is what they write in these stories. Please accept us. And these are our feelings. This is what we are going through. And this is what we are. Just accept us as normal people. Don't treat us as perverse people. No. Perverts are people who are unhealthy. They are not unhealthy like that. That's what they write. Okay. And it's a kind of a liberation movement where they're saying liberate us and don't put us down in any way. Okay. And so you have the whole movement started and came out, you'll be surprised, but it was Ismat Chuttai, the lady who wrote Liha. If you remember, I did that the first segment with you all. And I taught the Lihaf means the quilt, and she's the one who has there's that suppressed woman. She's married, she's beautiful, she's young, she's healthy, and she's normal, and her husband marries her, and the whole family agrees to get her married to him because, oh, he's not a bad person at all, he has got no bad habits, he's not running after prostitutes, women, dancing girls, or anything, which was what they did a lot in those days. All right. And so he's very good person and she'll be very happy. But the problem was that he was himself a homosexual. So he did not have any interest in her. He married her just so that society can keep quiet and he can hide behind that facade which is there. You understand? That was what it is. So she wrote. And she wrote so frankly, and it's not about the man's homosexuality, it's written about the woman, the lesbian, because this lady is forced to, go into that kind of a situation where she takes the help of this the maid. All right. And there are many shades to the whole thing. So I've already done it, so I won't go back. Okay. So that was literally almost the first, the significant way a few decades ago. Then it was accepted, of course. But as I told you, there was a case against her, and she had to go to court, defended herself, and the story continued uh, to remain and not withdrawn. You know how literature is. Are you aware that books can be banned? Okay, society decides and says this writer is too free in what he writes and it is objectionable. It will have an effect on the young minds, and so therefore this book is withdrawn. Okay, there are many very interestingly many books which are there. Lady Chatterley's Lovers there, and there's another Russian writer called Dostoevsky whose book was also withdrawn. Like that, there are many books like that. You see, and so here, but her book was not, her story was not withdrawn. Same with, in fact, as I told you, Sadat Hasan Manto, a great writer, he also was taken to court. Okay, now so basically that's what happened, and there are many of these things, but the editor says that is not right to say that there was nothing, no literature produced in India before, but it is, you have to understand that there are various references, okay, four works of homosexual writing to understand the range of literature produced in India itself. Okay, one is Geeta Tadani. Okay, and she has written Sakhya, a lesbian desire in ancient and modern India, and Ruth Vanita and Salim Kidwai, All these are the writings which was there. And there is also a reference to some such thing in an old classical textbook called Katha Sarit Sagar, as they say. Okay. Now, stories about sages born out of two wombs and such like. And also they're referring to a particular god. I don't know whether I should talk about that. Now, Hoshang Merchant, of course, is the modern person. All right. He has written something called Yarana, gay writings from India. Ashwini um, Sukthankar, Facing the Mirror, and she has written about lesbian writing. And two collections, both of them, they put together writings from uh, other writers of homosexual origin. Okay, all these are the background to the whole thing. Now we come to Hoshang Merchant himself and what he has written. Okay, and this is the first collection. His first collection is called Flower to Flame in 1989. And this puts him on as a vanguard, means the first of the writers, okay, of this gay literature. Okay. And you'll notice that most of the poetry has been published in various workshops, okay, and such like, and that's what happens. All right. So you'll also have to talk about, now at the end of each segment, you'll have a question. What in what ways can you understand homosexual literature? And here you have the history of publishing. What is the place given to Hoshang Merchant as a gay writer? Okay, now we have to take three of his poems for study. One is called Calicut to Cananore, okay, in summer. That's the first thing that he's written. And then a collection called Voyage to Spring, Poems for a Feckless Youth. And then there's something called the Birdless Cage. Okay. Uh, we find these, and then thereafter you'll have a critical study of what are the ideas, deriving ideas, his style of writing, and what is it that you have. You have a who are the other writers. There's a French writer called Rimbaud, whom he was greatly influenced by, and such like. Okay, so let's look at his first poem, which is called Calicut to Cananore in Summer. Okay, it's from one of the poems from a collection. Okay. Uh, this message. Yes, you have class tomorrow. This is not the last class. You have another class tomorrow, no? I think there's someone called Prasanna who's asking. Okay. And so tomorrow, 5 sharp, I'll be there. And if you come in, we'll be able to finish this. I was hoping to finish Hotel Merchant. And here what happens is, he in this particular thing, he talks about how he went from place to place to place to place in Kerala. Okay, starting with a place called Calicut, he talks about going to Tellicherry, all right, and and finally finish Koilon is a place, but he calls it Koilandi, okay, and then Koilon also is a place, then Talcherry, then he goes to Calicut, and then finally in the French colony of Mahe, that's where he talks about, okay, this is the whole journey, okay, but it is what we call an erotic route, okay, where he meets people whom he finds. It's not a perfect route from one place to another, but a rather erratic route where from one place he's going very differently through Koilandi, then Kalichari, Calicut, Mahi. Physical journey is not just a journey. He's not writing a travelogue. Please understand that. But he is describing beautiful things along the way. All right. And at the same time, there are, he writes about women also. That's the beauty of it all. And yet, at these, we flip through the poem and then we'll be able to understand. He talks about in Kerala, there is this concept, the idea of first image of women who are estranged from their men because most of them go away to work outside the state. Okay, they are estranged from their men and they're washing their dreams out of their eyes. This I found is a beautiful phrase. You see, they're washing clothes and their dreams are washed out of their eyes because a woman is happy as long as the husband is with her. Now he has to go and earn money, work, bring the money home. So as a result, she weeps. And when she weeps, with the tears, her dreams are washed out. Don't you think the entire metaphor is very beautiful and lovely? Okay? They can reconcile themselves to this deprived life that they lead. You know, this is another kind of thing. It's not the feminist woman saying fighting for her rights and such like. This is circumstantial, where the circumstances mean she can't be a woman, be happy with her husband because he has to go out and work and get the money. I found that really very very sensitive, beautiful. He's been able to touch on raw nerve in Kerala, because the maximum number of people who work in the Gulf are all from Kerala. Okay, so there he says, and washing their dreams out of their eyes is the tears which are flowing out. Okay, now in Koilandi he says. Women bathing and a young girl coming out of the water, and she's nubile, meaning so beautiful and lovely body that she has. She's like Venus coming out. This is a classical reference to a Greek goddess. All right. And I sit on the platform, a spectator to the life and its wounds, the wounds that life has. Okay. There it's a personification. And then you have Calicut, and nothing changes. Vasco da Gama first came to Calicut, if you remember. So there is that historicity which is going on in his mind. Then there is the French colony of Mahi, which has sent away all the French. They have discharged the colonizer. And now it is truly Hindu who lives in a French home. See, if you go to Pondicherry, for example, you have the French Quarter, French houses. You'll see that whole area is very different from the rest of Pondicherry, right? Like that here in Mahi also, he says, you'll find the real Hindus there, and they're living in French homes. The French should be living in French homes. Indians live in Indian homes, right? Have you got it now? So we are talking about displacement there. Have you understood? But then he talks about also the poem is full of images of the landscape, the grain, the rains, the lush green fields, the vegetation, and a promise, because everything is so green. It's a promise of life and love. Okay, that's the first poem that we are talking about. And then you have another poem which is to a feckless youth, where he now openly talks about a gay encounter with a young boy who actually, he says, he's a poet aspirant. Now the poet persona is himself, and he is entertaining and meeting up with this poet um, aspirant, okay, one who is waiting. Now, there he talks about the coils, he talks about the promises he had to make to this. You have the poet teacher and the uh, poet lover. Okay, the poet teacher is himself, and the poet lover is the boy who is young, okay, in Kerala. All right. And then he talks about very openly also about the sexual encounter, then various things like that. Then he goes on to the birdless cage, which I found was very interesting. Now, this is a very intimate poem, okay, which talks of love, desire, and prayer. Okay, and very he talks about the now look at birdless cage. Okay, there is a cage that's meant to have a bird, but the bird is free and flown now. Okay, can you see the metaphor involved there? Now, this is there are many themes which are recur in Hoshang Merchant's poems. One is sexuality, because he is openly gay. Okay, and it's the texture of his whole poems deals with same-sex love. Okay, now it is an intimate part of the landscape of life, he said. So why should I hide behind anything? Calicut to Cananore in summer, the plays even on the idea of the word summer and such like. Okay, the young men who feel, he's talking about normal men who look at women and such like. Okay, then you also have his poetry also has very eclectic traditions that is very varied. not one thought and one idea. Like, for example, he can talk about the normal man looking at the woman, and at the same time, he is not the one who's ogling. Okay. Are you able to understand? He's not the woman who look, he's not the person who's looking at a woman and saying, what a beautiful body. He's looking at men who are ogling women. Okay. How do you can see the passage of the thought processes, how they travel. Okay. Now, he writes, there are shades of the Bhakti tradition because he talks about Meera and her love for Lord Krishna. Okay, then there are touches of the Christianity, of Islam, Parsi tradition of worship, and all these things are what you find in his poetry. Okay, they are the ideas which you find. They drive the thought process in his poetry. Okay, then you also have now in his poetry you find a heady gush of emotions and a heady and a rush of images. Okay. The poetry is a combination of these things. All right. Now, there's a French writer called Rimbaud, Rimbaud. Okay. Now, Rimbaud uh, finds that he's very influenced by these things, and we find there are parallels that you find in his poetry very much like this French writer called Rimbaud. Okay. Loving and writing are inseparable for him. All right. When he says loving, it is gay love he's talking about. Semen, sweat, saliva, blood. All these things are blended, he says. The stain spot, dry uh, sting, and this is our ink, he says. Writing and gay love. This parchment is our body, he says. All right. And I shut my eyes, I sit on a bench, open my wounds to read its book. That's tremendous lines. He says, I shut my eyes, sit on a bench, open up my wounds, and read it like a book. The wound is the book for him to read. Okay. Lovely lines that we talk about. And he's been, now the summing up, you have questions on that, and there is answers to check your progress also, which you can go. That's it for today. And because it's way beyond, I think I've taken a little more time than saying. I had no idea. I thought the link would break. Um, and but I can't go on like that. So I'm supposed to finish by 6:30. So I have here now, what is left for me is four writers. Sorry, five. Manjula Padmanabhan, Imtiaz Darkar, Meenakshi Mukherjee, Sharan Kumar Limbale, and Gauri Vishwanath. Five of these people I will do tomorrow in the class, which I will start at 5. Okay. So thank you very, very much. And that's the end of the class. Any
Okay.
other doubts or anything, you can tell me, and
Oh,
otherwise leave the class.
okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome, most welcome. Pleasure teaching you all. I hope you have uh, been able to get some help out of what I've said. The writers I've done are Salman Rushdie and Volga and Hoshan Merchant. These are the three. Very, very important, very interesting. See, what is interesting about a writer is the mind of the writer, right? What is it, their thought processes, what put on the pages of a book. Okay, thank you. And so